interior on this thing is hammered. What am I gonna do with all this stuff in here? So much mud, dirt, stains. 2017 truck was freaking ruined. All right, what the heck is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's been like a little over 2 weeks. Some super sad stuff's been going on in the family. These past 2 weeks have not been fun. I don't have the big C. I am healthy. The problems aren't related to the big C, so I don't know. Let's get off that depressing subject though. All right, so anyways, I am drinking crappy McDonald's coffee. I don't know why. But the real reason why we're here is today that we finally have the CP4 disaster prevention kit for the 6.7 POWERSTROKE. And also, really quick, the freaking shop has been turned into a body shop. Do not bring your stuff here for body work. Yeah, that's a Dodge Dart right there. After here, I'm just gonna dart over to Starbucks and get a real coffee. All right, enough playing games. So coming from the 6.0 POWERSTROKE, everyone had the term, bulletproof the truck. Is the truck bulletproof? No. Which the whole term bulletproof doesn't even make any sense. I think it mainly came from the company, Bulletproof Diesel or whatever they're called, where they made the parts to bulletproof the 6.0 POWERSTROKEs. So the 6.0s kind of gave the POWERSTROKE a bad rap. 7.3s were okay, 6.0s, trash, 6.4s, trash, 6.7s, very good. But that history of the trash is still pulling on the 6.7's ankles. Everyone thinks that these trucks are still kind of junky. And take it from me firsthand, go back through the channel. We've hammered the truck, 85,000 miles, never had any real issues. Mechanically, the engines and transmissions are very strong. Now the Achilles heel, I would say, if you were gonna ask me, what's the worst thing on the 6.7 POWERSTROKE? There's a couple little things that we addressed with the SPE parts, but not really like life or death for the truck. Like there's the billet fuel drain valve, those little tabs snap off, like CCV reroute stuff. That's more like performance oriented. But if you were to come up to me and ask me what is the biggest issue you would think would be with these trucks, it would have to lie with the CP4. Hold on, I got one. All right, so CP4 is right here. Now this looks like a mini engine. You got two kind of cylinder head action thingies. You got like a main crankshaft option here. I'm gonna get a little closer so you guys can see. So yeah, CP4, and if you were gonna ask me what would be the thing that was gonna break on your truck, it would be this here. Now when the CP4 operates, it operates very, very well. It holds a high PSI for the injection pressure. It looks kind of cool, looks a lot cooler than a CP3, but when it fails big time and completely destroys your injectors, rest of your fuel lines, your fuel cooler, your fuel filters. You gotta drain the fuel tank. It's a big process and it's a big nightmare that could lead to, I don't know, like tens of thousands of dollars to get, 8 new injectors, new fuel lines, new fuel cooler. You got to drop the tank. There's a ton of labor involved, all from this. All right, so real quick, what happens to these is when it's introduced to like dirty fuel or contaminated fuel, such as water, dirt, or whatever, it doesn't get lubed properly in the bottom end, thus shredding the bottom end. Now this is a quick concept, it's a quick overview of what goes back. And then that debris from the bottom end can travel up through, get pressurized, go through the fuel line, go through the fuel rail, go to the injectors, and then your injector's wiped out and you're talking some big money. And also the return fuel will be contaminated going back through your fuel lines, through your fuel cooler, back to the tank, thus creating like a huge nightmare. All right, so by now I'm sure everyone out there with the 6.7 POWERSTROKE or that is familiar with these trucks have seen some type of disaster prevention kit. There's a couple on the market, and that's probably one of the biggest questions, one of the most asked questions I get for my truck is hey, what kind of disaster prevention kit would you recommend? Are you running one? Why are you not running one? So a lot of question going on with a disaster prevention kit for these trucks. So throughout all the other kits on the market, none have really caught my eye. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of lazy about it. I probably should have been running one. I haven't been running one. Still not running one because it's right here on the cart. And also one of the big reasons I was holding off is because I had the pleasure to see this kit in development and I was like, why am I gonna go buy another disaster prevention kit when the almighty kit is about to be released. All right, so essentially a disaster prevention kit seems like it's this intense thing. It's actually not. It's very, very simple. So what you want to do is you want to keep the fuel from the bottom end of the CP4 separate from the fuel that gets pressurized and then goes to your injectors. So you want to have two kind of supplies going to this pump. One supply feeding the pump heads, which pressurizes and goes to the injectors, and another supply feeding the bottom end, keeping the bottom end of the pump lubed properly. So when you break it down like that, it's super simple. And SPE Dan, the mad scientist at SPE, has released this unit to achieve that exact goal. And also, there's one additional thing that makes this kit incredible. All right guys, so keeping this as simple as I can, you want to feed the pump with two fuel supplies. You want to feed the pump heads, and then you want to feed the bottom end, both separately. So traditionally on the pump only has one fuel input. So your fuel goes in here, goes down to the bottom end, gets pressurized in the bottom end, then goes to the pump heads. It's pressurized in the pump heads, then comes out of here, goes to the fuel line, goes to the injector, truck goes full send, okay? There's no other place, there's only that one fuel input. This is a return valve, so once your bottom end hits a certain pressure, return fuel will come out of here, go back to the tank. So there's only one way to feed the pump as it sits from the factory. So the way you feed the pump heads with fresh fuel and not feed it with bottom end fuel is with this little puppy right here. So what you do is you pull off your valve on the top of your CP4. Pull that valve off. This little distribution block thing goes under the valve, sits on there like that. And what this does is it blocks off that hole, you see that hole right there, that feeds the pump heads. So what this does is this goes in, it blocks off that hole, and it provides that new port right there where the fresh fuel is fed directly in to the pump heads. So that there is pretty standard. That is the standard way to feed fresh fuel in to supply the pump heads without supplying it from the bottom end. And then once you have that on, your valve goes back on, boom, boom. You are supplied with longer bolts, obviously, because you now have the thickness of this little distribution block type thing, and you are set. That is all that is mounted onto the CP4 pump itself. You don't have to change anything else with the pump. You don't have to take it off. You don't have to change, you don't have to unplug anything here. You don't have to block anything off. You install that, you're done. All right, so now the main question is, how are you going to feed filtered fuel to this 90-degree fitting on the CP4 pump? So now is when things get very, very cool. You have two hard fuel lines coming off the CP4 of the truck. You can see a bigger one and a smaller one. So small one, big one. Big one is obviously feed, and small is the return. So if you chase your big feed line over, keep chasing it, you can see it right there with the fuel temp sensor, this port. So keep following that, keep following that. You can see that quick connect right there with the green little snap ring onto this plastic molded line. So you can see where the plastic molded line connects to the feed line there, loops up and around, comes up to the center output on the fuel filter. So the other disaster prevention kits on the market would have you cut and modify this hard feed line that goes to the CP4. You would have to cut that somewhere, where you would use a compression fitting where it just kind of pushes together, and then it would feed their new distribution block that goes on top of the CP4. Now the serious part of this kit is there is no cutting required. So you're supplied this, this, and this. So those three pieces are what makes it possible to not cut that fuel, that hard feed line. So coming back under the hood in the engine bay, very, very simple. You pull this plastic molded line off the hard line. Green tabs, pull that sucker off. Pull this off. Get rid of this. Once you have the hard line end exposed, you take your distribution block and you push it on. Internally inside of this piece here, there is O-rings and different type of things to act just like the Ford factory push-on connection. So you push this block right onto the end of that hard line and it snaps on. Then you have a securement backing with the bolt, put that on, it's added security, bam. That's on the end of the fuel line. So then you have your 90-degree fitting facing the center valley engine of the truck, and then you have this top push pin connection facing vertical, facing straight up. So it will sit in there on the hard line just like this. So now I'm pretty sure that you can figure out what you do next. You take your new supplied molded line, connect it onto your top push pin coming off the distribution block, and this goes up and goes to that middle pin on the fuel filter. Sits just like that. Once that's on, you take your stainless steel braided supply line, and this will go right onto the 90-degree fitting that comes off the distribution block, okay? So we're still sitting just like this on the truck. And this new supplied stainless steel line runs parallel with the original OE hard line, and it runs over and connects to the 90-degree fitting that you previously installed on the CP4 pump. So this sits in the truck like this, and you have your 90-degree fitting facing the driver's side, and then your stainless steel line connects right to that, and boom, you are now supplied fresh fuel from your fuel filter. In the factory line, you never even touch the factory line. The factory line is still feeding the pump. So the factory line is still connected to the feed port, and it goes down and lubes the bottom end, and then it does its thing down there and pressurizes, and then it comes back up through the return port, and then it'll go back to the tank. So that is a very quick example on how the CP4 is fed fresh fuel without cutting or modifying any lines. So technically the only thing that you're actually removing off of the truck and not putting back on is the factory plastic molded line that you will take off from the hard line up to the fuel filter. You'll take that off and you'll use this new supplied one, and everything else stays on the truck. Okay, so now we're feeding the CP4 with fresh fuel. It's coming in through there, it's doing its thing, it's getting pressurized in the pump heads, it's going to the ejectors, truck's doing burnouts, everything's good to go. So now you may ask, so if a failure occurs with your CP4, the bottom end goes out, right? Debris goes through, it's churning, burning bearings. That contaminated fuel is still gonna come out of this return line right there and go back through your fuel line, through your fuel cooler, down your frame rail, into the tank. So then you'll have all that debris in your tank. No other kit on the market, no disaster prevention kit addresses the return side. If a failure happens, you're gonna still send all of that crud back to the tank, which is kind of stupid if you ask me, because supplying it with fresh fuel is only half the battle. So the mad scientist Dan at SPE supplies you with this little mini beer keg of an apparatus here with a fancy SPE logo on the top. So I already took out the 3 bolts. So inside of this little beer keg is a serious little fuel filter screen. So the micron size on this thing is serious. You can't really even see light through it. So this will catch 99% of the material that comes out of the bottom end if you have a CP4 failure. And a very cool feature to this whole little mini beer keg is that this installs in literally 30 seconds and doesn't require any cutting also. So this is what it'll look like when it's ready to go on the truck. So moving underneath the hood over to here. So what this does is this catches the return fuel and filters it. So the return side here is the small one. So you follow your return side over. Your return side runs parallel to the feed line, goes down, does a nice little 90 right there, and it then merges with the return side from the fuel rail. Merges right there, you can see a little T. And then you have a quick connect fitting that pushes onto the T. So you have a return line coming off the fuel rail right to the T, and then you have the main return line coming from the CP4. The T merge together, go into this push quick connect here, and then this is your return line that goes up, down, back to the tank. So the coolest, easiest thing you could do, simply pop that quick connect return line off of the T, take your new filter apparatus mini keg, you push it down onto the T, put your locking plate and your bolt in, boom, that sucker's on the T, and then you take the plastic fuel line that you pulled off initially, and you push that sucker right onto the new barb coming off of the mini keg. A literal 30-second install, and now your return fuel is filtered. All right, guys, so first initial thoughts, first response kind of deal to this disaster prevention kit. It's absolutely incredible. And I'm not even saying this because I'm buddies with Dan. This is absolute, hands down, the best disaster prevention kit on the market. It addresses the feed. You don't have to cut any lines. It addresses the return filters with this little mini keg. The build quality is insane. There's all O-rings in there and all the bolts and everything's perfect, and the machining it's incredible. Now, if I can install this and have no leaks, this is going to be the holy grail of disaster prevention, because I know it's not gonna leak. I've seen it on the SP test truck for a ton of miles. So now you can officially bulletproof your 6.7 POWERSTROKE with this kit here. This thing addresses the only real threat to the truck that can cause like actual thousands of dollars in damage, which is super cool. So now, especially for me, I'm running like 720 horsepower. It's definitely probably a good thing to be running one of these. I don't want to explode the pump since we're pushing it to its limits. I am running the Warren 55 over pump, and we're running the tune pretty hot. We still have a little bit left on the tune. We might add some more to it. We're gonna see where that goes. Like I said, the past 2 weeks have just been a little crappy for me. But we're trying to build some momentum. We're coming back, and we're here reviewing parts. But all right, guys, that is about it for the first initial overview of how to bulletproof your 6.7 POWERSTROKE. Do it with this disaster prevention kit, the holy grail. If you guys want to get one of these, hit the first link in the description. I'm always trying to just bring some honest fire reviews on 6.7 POWERSTROKE parts to you guys out there for any type of information that I can share and spread. Bam. But all right, tune in next video. We're gonna install this puppy. I didn't want to put both of those in the same video because it would have been a super long video. So overview, then installation, coming soon. And that's it. I'm out. Peace. I'm gonna dart over to Starbucks. My dodge dart.